Hello, everybody. This is Albert Winkler, and we're going to have a real fun time because now we can start discussing modern civilizations. Just to make sure that everybody knows what we're doing here, notice what I have done. Look in the upper right-hand side of the screen. We are taking a look at my course outline, and today I'm going to be discussing the requirements for this course and what I'm expecting. Let's make sure that we are in the right place. This is History 151G, also known as Modern Civilizations. We are Section 1, and of course you can see right here, the class is being taught in the summer term of 2020. A lot of times when we meet in a classroom, I have a lot of fun with this. I'll say, oh, by the way, do you know which classroom we're in? And I'll start talking about something. Sometimes students say, is this English class? No, it's a history class. Then they'll get up and leave. Anyway, that's not going to be a problem because just you people are at home. You don't have to get up and go anywhere. Anyway, so there's no classroom time. There's no time when it meets. Normally this class would meet as I'm going to talk down here a little farther on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. Since it's taught entirely remotely, you can watch and listen to the lectures anytime you want to. Well, let's tell you who I am. I'm Dr. Winkler. I don't know what you need to know about me. Have you ever been in classes where professors will give you their biography? Where they went to school, the degrees they have, publications. Well, what do you need to know about me? Three things, probably the three things that I love most in life is talking about history, reading about history, writing about history, speaking about history. I am a history geek. I absolutely adore history. Students have asked me, well, why on earth do you like history? Quirk of personality? I do wonder this. Now, when I was a little boy, we were living in one of these concrete buildings that were built very rapidly because of the expansion of the military capability during World War II. Now, I'm not that old. I wasn't a baby during World War II. But my family is still living in one of these things after the war is over. So my earliest memories are in these old concrete and cinder brick buildings where I lived. And my brothers tell me stories like this. I have two older brothers, 6 and 8 years older. And they would pick me up. And of course, big brothers drop their little brothers on the concrete. One time, my oldest brother said he dropped me on the concrete and there was this large crack. It wasn't the concrete, it was my head. Now, that explains a lot, doesn't it? Does that explain why I went into history? It certainly could. Okay, quirk of personality, head trauma, however you want to look at it. But I do love history. Publications, I don't just teach history, I publish a lot. Over the years, I've published over 40 books and articles. So I like putting this on paper. And of course, these things are eventually scanned, put on the internet. So I like to make statements. In any event, you need to contact me. The easiest way to contact me is probably to go on the university's system where you can email your professor. If something is awfully critical, you might need to call me at home. Now, don't call me when I'm watching my favorite sci-fi. Don't call me unless it's terribly important. I've had calls late at night. One guy called me, it's late on a Sunday, about time I would normally be going to bed. And he said, oh, I lost $30,000 in the stock market. I did offer him my sympathy, but my sympathy was limited. You see, I wish I had $30,000 to lose in the stock market. Does this mean you are incapable of thinking, reasoning, and proceeding with the course? Well, I'm sure that's a disappointment, but in reality, probably not. A young lady called me. She was distraught. She said, we just broke up. And I go, I used to be young. I know it's hard to believe, but long, long time ago. I was a young person. I remember the affairs of the heart. I remember dating. I remember getting shafted. If I really liked the girl, really liked her, I'd cry for 2 days. Then after that, I would hardly remember her. Like 2 weeks later, who was she anyway? Unfortunately, I know it's painful. It's traumatic, but you will get over it. Once again, does that inhibit your ability to function mentally? I do not think it does. You're going to have a wide variety of times, virtually all the time you want, anytime you want, to listen to the lectures. When the examinations are required, you will have a large window in which you can take the examination. So on the basis of this, don't call me unless there's a really important reason that cannot be discussed on the using emails. Okay, let's look at the class briefly. The modern civilizations from the year 1500 AD to the present, 5 centuries. I'll talk more about the nature of the course as we progress, but this is essentially what we will be discussing. Civilizations, Europe, Asia, and Africa. Let me tell you what you already know. This course is going to be entirely online. Because of the virus, there's no opportunity for us to meet in a classroom. That's really disappointing. You see, in classroom, I know if I'm going too fast because people say I can't understand. I know if I'm going too slow if people fall asleep. The most negative feature of not being in a classroom is the interaction has to be very limited. You can't really discuss with the other students the nature of the lecture. You can't talk to them after class or before class. And it becomes very challenging for you to ask me a question, ask me for an explanation. Those kind of things we really can't do. So with these caveats, we will do the best we can under the circumstances. Course outline. The course, let's read along right here. Oh, by the way, this has been placed on the Canvas system. As you go in and pull up this class on Canvas, there is an area where I placed 2 items, one of which is the course outline, which we're looking at right here. This is kind of this gives you background what's being expected. And also, I have a study guide. The study guide is actually our points of discussion, what we will be talking about this semester. And I will use that as your lecture, your notes, my lecture notes, and your notes. I urge you to print off this so you have it handy at any given time. Refer to it very easily. I also urge you to print off the study guide. So when you have the study guide printed off, you can follow along with my discussion, take your pen, and you can take notes to make sure you understand the kind of information I'm presenting. Okay. Course outline. Course online. I'll say this correct. Yeah. This course will be presented entirely online because of the virus. The course was originally scheduled to meet 3 times each week on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays for 1 hour and 50 minutes each. This would run from June 30th to August 12th, 2020. This is lecture time. The last time we would have met, which would have been a Thursday on August 13th, that was scheduled for the final. So the lecture part of this class runs from June 30th to August 12th. If this was a class that I met in a classroom, I would have to take an hour twice for 2 examinations. This would cut down our lecture time by 1 hour. Also, if we're meeting for an hour and 50 minutes, that's really too long to go to stretch. When I was in the Navy Reserves, we got instruction on how to present information. When you're teaching your fellow men and women in the Navy various issues, they made a big deal about this. You will call a break every hour. Now, the smoking rate in the U.S. Navy is like twice the national average. If the men and women are thinking about their next cigarette, it's going to be pretty hard for them, is it not, to wait? Yeah, it is. If they're worried about that, they can't concentrate on what you're saying. In our situation, I think it's more common to have people who need a little extra caffeine. So I normally would call a break, a short break, 5-10 minutes at the hour when teaching a class like this. Since this is not necessary, I will not have breaks in my lectures. You can pause this on YouTube anytime you want to. You can go out and get your Pepsi or whatever you happen to be drinking that day, come back and get ready to go again. So rather than having these tests, rather than calling a break, I'm just going to lecture straight through. This is your time. We can use this time as best we can. So there's going to be a little bit more detail in this class than I usually get in other classes, because simply I'm going to have more time when I'm in front of you. All the lectures are on YouTube. I have recorded all of them. My son, the computer geek, this guy is really bright. He's already started uploading them onto YouTube. And in uploading them onto YouTube, you're going to be able to watch them at your convenience. Let me show you how to look for this. Let's get on YouTube here. YouTube. There's YouTube. And take a look under Al. Get into search mode here. Albert Winkler. You can look at this under lectures. Now, let's say you're talking about, this is our second lecture. Notice this, Albert Winkler, Modern Civilization, History 151G. This happens to be lecture 2. I've got lecture 1. Let's just show you how we're proceeding here. Let's call this up. See, here I am. Got on.
Hope everybody's doing well today.
Yep, here I am.
This is Dr. Winkler.
Wearing my Winkler sweatshirt.
Modern Civilizations.
So you see how to call this up.
151G.
Now, obviously, I'm competing with myself, but you can see how this works out. You will have the study guide up here. I will literally follow it right down the line. We'll go down here. I will discuss these issues as we come on down. And at this time frame, you'll have the opportunity to watch these. Now, let me show you something else. While this class starts with lecture 1, which is right down here, and I just gave you 30 seconds of lecture 2. Lecture 3 and 4 ought to be here as well, but nonetheless, so lecture 5. So simply follow them in order. Now you see something here. This says Albert Winkler, Ancient Civilizations. You see, last semester I was teaching a couple of sections of ancient civilization, and I was teaching one section of modern civilization. So it's the only ones you are concerned with is modern civilization, not ancient civilization. See if I can be a little more specific here. Albert Winkler, how about modern Mod Civ? Does that work better? History 151G. Oh, by the way, it's a recent picture of me for my for my UVUID. I like this portrait quite a bit. Don't look nearly as bad as I do in other places. And obviously you can see I'm something with sourpuss. Anyway, let's see if this, you see now it comes to our lecture. So we got Modern Civ Lecture 1, Age of Exploration, Lecture 2, the Renaissance, Lecture 3, the Reformation, Lecture 4, the second section of the Reformation, Lecture 5 is the witch craze. And Not all of these have been uploaded yet. My son can only come over on weekends, bringing his kids over, and so we can only download a few. Now, there's still, from the time frame I'm speaking right now, there's still a number of weeks before the beginning of the semester. So unless we have a flood and earthquake, and it doesn't flood in Utah, as you recall, unless we have some kind of disaster in Utah, I will have all these uploaded and ready to go for the lectures. But right now you have plenty to start. This will keep you going for a number of weeks. Okay, where are we at? All lectures will be on YouTube. Available to watch and review at your convenience. I've been told about YouTube is that when you're on YouTube, you can these things will be there indefinitely. So it's not like you're going to come and go. No, this will be on indefinitely. Lecture length. Now I need to clarify something here. Lecture length. Your instructor has taken care, I've tried very hard to do this, to ensure that you will have as much lecture time online as if the class had been met in person. In other words, we were in a classroom together. Done the little math, pull out my calculator, came up about 2,200 minutes. Most of the lectures were recorded at 1 hour and 50 minutes each. I've already was talking about that. However, 10 of the lectures were recorded for the last few weeks of spring semester 2020. No reason to record these. I've already got these recorded. However, that class met for 1 hour and 15 minutes each. So you're going to be going along here and you're going to see, well, okay, lectures 1 hour, 50 minutes. Then you'll hit a section late in the class, like within the last third of the class mostly. You'll hit those that are 1 hour and 15 minutes. I'm not trying to shortchange you on the amount of instruction. They will be shorter than the others. These shorter lecture times have been calculated into the total amount of times for the lectures. So be going along 1 hour and 50 minutes, you'll hit 1 hour and 15 minutes, and then after that you hit 1 hour and 50 minutes again. Including the instruction I'm giving you right now, it's going to be very, very close to my goal of giving you this much instruction. Let's see if I can just try this one more time to show you one of the shorter lectures. These are lectures. These are the ones I was showing you. Okay. Notice what I have done in later on. Rather than using modern civ, mod civ, I used modern civilization. So I'm not completely consistent in this case. The modern civilization, as you look at the time, they're dealing with the Soviet Union lecture. Notice the time on this, which is down here, which is 1 hour and 15 minutes. And I went over 5 seconds. I apologize. I try as hard as I can. Just missed it. Another example, of course, down here is imperialism, which is also 1 hour and 15. So you do see the difference. Now, let's get you a little bit closer on your understanding of what's expected from this class. Assignments and grading. Text. Notice I have over here volume 2, since 1500, 8th edition. The most current edition of this, I believe, is what, the 11th edition? I'm not sure of that. I've been using a History of World Societies for a very lengthy period of time. When I started using this, I was like on the 2nd edition. That was a long time ago. That was decades ago, literally. There are a lot of other good textbooks out there. Why do I use this one? Well, some of the other ones take different interpretations I don't like. And some of them have what I call the shotgun effect. In other words, I can lecture, let's say on the Reformation. I can lecture on the Reformation, and I can talk about that for 1 hour or 2 or 3. I can talk about that. I can have a restricted lecture topic. Sometimes the textbooks will come out and go, you know, section here, a little bit there, you know, say the shotgun effect. I can't lecture that way. I can't go back and forth with various items. Now, I will say the more recent editions of this, they've actually gone to the shotgun effect, where rather than staying with consistent chapters on consistent themes, they bounce around considerably. So even though there are more recent editions, I'm asking you to take a look at some of the older editions. You can usually find these online pretty cheap. They're not terribly expensive. Why do you change editions? Well, the simplest reason that you usually change editions is because you make more money. Oh, the old edition, it's out of print. We have changed this now. We've changed this and now it's brand new. So your old textbooks cannot be used. You have to discard them. Well, in comparing old editions and new editions, yes, sometimes they configure the chapters differently. But sometimes they change a word every few paragraphs. The essential information has a tendency to remain the same. So I'm trying to figure out a way, maybe saving you people a little bit of money rather than spending a lot of money. I don't know really what these things cost, but obviously used can obviously be a lot cheaper. Let's take a look at what you can get an older edition on Amazon. Okay, what I've done improperly here is I've only copied some of this. Let's get this out of here. Let's start over all the way here and highlight it going over from there. You people are so young and so talented. You can do this in your sleep. Us old guys are not quite as good at it as you are. Let's go here. Let's try Amazon again. And let's bring this in here. And now see what it brings up. Notice that this is the edition I'm talking about right here. Paperback, 35 bucks. That's cheaper than what you're going to get elsewhere. Cheaper than what you're going to get in the bookstore. But let's go down here. You see 10 bucks? You see, 10 bucks is a lot cheaper. So I'm urging you to look at the 8th edition or the 9th edition. Here's your friendly 9th edition. Nice lady on the cover here. You can buy books, used books very cheaply on Amazon. Another place I often check when I'm looking for a good cheap book is ABE Books, also known as Abe Books. AbeBooks.com, ABE Books. And let me just drop this whole thing in here and see what we get. Really, no results? I probably should have done this better. No results. Well, let's try it this way. Take it out as title. Obviously, I have more information there than you have on a title. So let's take this down and use it as keywords and see if my success ratio is better. Okay. I'm not going to take the time to play with this and get it right. However, I will try it one more time, and if I fail, I will tell you that I've had success in the past in going and finding that sometimes you'll find books that are cheaper here than are cheaper on Amazon. Well, I'm quite surprised in this. Maybe I'm the victim of my own success, that I've asked students a couple of times in recent semesters to go online and buy these. And maybe they've already bought all the cheap ones. However, remember, we have a 9th edition as well, and that's perfectly acceptable. Now, if you want to get the more recent editions, you certainly can. The reason why I'm still asking about these is that I think they're a lot cheaper, and it's easier for me to refer to them in a discussion because they present information that is easier for me to relate to as far as the lecture is concerned. Okay. I want to make a big deal about the textbook. You're going to learn a lot more from this course from reading something than anything else that takes place. I mean, my goodness. Going to highlight that in case I accidentally hit the copy button. If I do, I don't want to have sentences appearing all over the place. If you want to learn something, one of the best ways to learn something is to read it. If you are serious about history, if you want to use history in any sense whatsoever, those of you who are thinking about going on with history, maybe going to graduate school, those who are thinking about teaching history, you just want to know something, you're going to learn a lot more from reading than anything else. I mean, I could be the most entertaining guy in the world. I'm not. I could be like Bozo the Clown. I get up here, I could dance, I could sing. Boy, I could tell jokes. I could have you roaring with laughter. And what would you retain from a history discussion? Well, very little. But if you read something, and when I read things, I tend to mark them up. You see, you can read something and go back and, well, it's in there someplace. If there's something worth remembering, it's very, very wise to go in and underline it. I mean, I have a little system. It's kind of interesting. A little tick in the margin. If it's not so interesting, if it's more interesting, I'll underline it. If it's earth-shattering, if it's extremely interesting, I do have a tendency not only to underline it, but in the margin I'll put an asterisk. This is essential information that's really helping me. I'm a history geek. I've been reading history books since I was in junior high school. Some of them are extremely interesting. I remember them very fondly. And some of even going back, they're all yellow and aged by now. But I still have some books that I bought in junior high school. They're down in the basement. There's good information in there. But since I didn't mark them up, I'd almost have to read it again to find the things that were so interesting to me. It's not only a means by which you can learn more, come back and find it, but you can learn more in the process. You're looking for information, and you're reviewing this as you underline it, or you put an asterisk in the margin. Please pay attention to the book. It's very impressive, and it's a very good way of learning. As you read the book and listen to my lectures, I do not completely agree on every issue. For example, even though these textbooks say that the course starts in 1500, in reality, they do not have a discussion of the Reformation. This one, volume 2 here, says it starts in 1450. I know you're reading it backwards, but you're very intelligent people. You can easily do that. They still don't discuss the Reformation. Now, the Reformation, I think, is one of the more important events, if you will, in the early modern world. So I'm going to spend more time discussing the Reformation than normally I would if you could also read about it in the text. Okay, reading is very important. I would like you to have an example of getting in touch with people who lived a long time ago. I'm going to ask you to read 2 very interesting books. Quite frankly, I think these books are literally fascinating. I'm going to ask you to read a couple of books. These are an easy read. This is not big-time textbook with the big words. It's none of that. These are easy reads about people's experiences. You see, in a survey course like this, where we're going to be discussing issues literally 5 centuries long, you get lost in generalities. But there are so many tens and hundreds of millions of people that have experienced this time frame Would it not be helpful just to get in touch with a couple of them? These are easy reads. I'm asking you, as far as the readings, as a little incentive to actually get you to read these things, is I'm asking you to read the book and write a short review on the book. I'll talk about more about that in a minute. In other words, about 3 pages in length. Very easy to do. One is the Annals of the Famine in Ireland. One of the reasons why I've chosen these books is they are in the public domain. Public domain means anybody can take them, use them for any reason they want to without copyright infringement. In other words, you can scan these, make them available on the internet for free. Now, there's a number of places you can go look for these. I've kind of become a little bit more prejudiced, if that's the right word. I like HathiTrust. It's not the only place you can look. There's an American woman, Asenath Nicholson, who went to Ireland. So that's part of the course. Went to Ireland and wrote some books on her experiences, and this is one of them. Okay, let's go over here. This should be hot linked. Okay, there it is. This is HathiTrust. Hathi actually is, I believe it's a Hindi word from India that means elephant. And as you know, the story is elephants never forget. In any event, you saw I got here by clicking on that. In reality, you could just simply, when you're on the internet, just look that up, hathitrust.org, and it'll take you right here. So let's paste this in here. I can go full text, but it'd probably get more than I need. So I can go to catalog and see what we get. Annals of the Famine in Ireland by Mrs. A. Nicholson. Her full name is Asenath. Full view, see it says full view right here. Pull that up. Takes a minute. Going to download the entire book. Annals of the Famine in Ireland. These are the years, 1847, 1848, 1849, at the height of the famine. We have an eyewitness saying what that was like. Simply come down here. You've done this probably many other times. You can take this, you can read it for free. If you want to keep a copy, I'm so old, I'm still kind of a hard copy kind of guy. It's awfully nice to have the paper around. I like to touch it and feel it. It's easier to underline, those kind of things. But obviously, you young people, technology means something completely different to you. Notice you can enlarge this. Okay. Be nice if I enlarged it on a text. I'm old, my eyes are weak. So you can enlarge these and you can manipulate this around very easily. I would like you very, very, very strongly to read this book. I think you'll find it very interesting and quite enlightening. Now, we're still in HathiTrust. Let's go back and look for somebody else now. Let's take a look at an anonymous account. A German deserters' war experience. Okay. Let's highlight it. Come on, puppy. I know what my problem is. I've never got the skill of highlighting. There we go. Copy. Really? Okay, let's forget about that. I just type it in up here. German deserters war experience. Very unfortunately, some of the time frame we have to talk about is the wars, World War I, World War II. It's not a military history course. I'm not going to go in and talk at grandiose terms about the 30 Years' War. In fact, I'm not even going to mention the 30 Years' War, except in passing. But so many people, hundreds of millions of people are going to have an experience of war in the 20th century. Let's just get you in touch with one of them. This is a German soldier. This is the First World War. This is a short book. Read it in an afternoon. And he's just simply a guy who was in the German army. He hates it, doesn't want to be there. He hates it. Finally, after a year or so of pretty harrowing experiences, he deserts. He's a German deserter. Got on a ship, came over to the United States, and published this in a German newspaper. I can read German. I am disappointed, however, that I've never been able to find this in the original German. I would like to read it. However, what we're seeing is an anonymous account. He does not want to be held responsible. Nobody wants to run him down and say, oh, you deserted from the German army. I would imagine he's afraid of retaliation against his family, perhaps, if people knew he had deserted. This is a harrowing account. I don't remember how I ran across it. I'm big into World War I. I've taught the World War I class numerous times. It is one of my study areas. I didn't remember where I ran across this. I was just reading books, and I do this. I've read large numbers of books on World War I. Just kind of go to the shelf and pick one off. This was not on the shelf, it's on the internet. I pulled it up. I don't remember when I did it, but I do remember its impact on me. I'm saying, this is one of the best accounts I've got. So I do want you to read both these books. Print them off if you will. Mark them up if you want to. Now, let's take a look here. Course emphasis. This class will focus on the intellectual, political, and cultural developments of modern civilizations of Asia, Africa, and Europe. Essentially what we're doing. The Americas are not included. America is not part of this course. You say, but wait a minute, isn't that modern civilization? Certainly there are people in America between 1500 and present. If it's world civilization, why aren't we discussing them? Well, there are courses on Latin American history on campus. There are courses on American history on campus. We can make a better case for this if you took a course on American history and they taught you about the Protestant Reformation. I don't think they're doing that. I think they're talking about the United States. So when we are looking at this, the United States is involved in many respects. We come over during World War I, World War II, we bring armies, and we fight against the Japanese in the Pacific. It's not that the United States isn't involved in what's happening in other parts of the world, but the United States is not a focus of the class. So you want to know about Latin America and the United States, take a course on Latin America and the United States. Most important part of this class is grading. We can say that. Grading, this is how you are graded. 3 tests and 2 book reviews determine grades. That's it. 3 tests, 2 book reviews. That's it. Determine grades. The test, there's 3 tests. Each test is worth 100 points. And the book reviews are worth 25 points each for a total of 350 points. This is how the grades run down. Let's say you earn 326 points in this class. You simply divide that by the number of points possible, which might be 350, which will be 350. And you come up with 93%. That is an A. It's probably the only grade I really need to discuss, don't I? I mean, do I really want to talk about any of the grades? If you earn an A grade, I'll be more glad to give it to you. However, if you fell asleep on the exam or something, that's a pretty good idea that you might lose a point or 2. If this does happen, and the percentage ends up being 90 to 92%, that is an A minus. A B plus is 87 to 89%. A B is 83 to 86%. Now a B minus would be, going back to our reference over here, remember 90 to 92% is an A minus. So 80 to 82% is a B minus. So it breaks down very easily. Same thing within the C category. C category, a C will be, a C plus, I should say, would be 87 to 89. 70, I'll say it right, 77 to 79. A C will be 73 to 76. A C minus will be 70 to 72. It breaks down perfectly. There's no extra credit. Please don't ask. I mean, everybody's got an excuse. I didn't feel good that day. You know, my family's in town. I want to go to a movie. Some people say, I went to a football game in San Diego. Well, I'd like to go to a football game in San Diego. However, I'm sorry. Please don't ask. You see, the difficulty with extra credit is this. How many times have you had history before you get in here? I don't know how they're teaching history when you were growing up, but when I was growing up, we had world history like 9th grade, and we had world history again in high school, junior high and high school. So you've heard these kind of things before. You heard a lot of things before. I'm going to be lecturing in here, and you're going to go, yeah, sure. I've heard that before. I can also guarantee you, I'm going to say a lot of things that you've never heard before. But can't you fake it? If you don't know something, let's fake it. I already know some history. I call this the zig and zag. I zig and you zag. I'm asking you this, but you don't know this, you know that, so you answer the wrong materials. You don't do well. You see, if I allow you to have extra credit, what will happen is this, at least with few students. You have real incentive not to study, because I can fake through this. If I ask you extra credit, you blow the test, do something else. I'm asking you to study for the test. The best way you're going to succeed in this class, to pay attention, to take good notes, and before the examination, memorize your notes. You will do very well. Please take it seriously and don't think that you can make it up later, because I really can't allow that. Tests. The tests and the final are in the essay format. Each covers 1/3 of the course and will be administered online through the Canvas system on the indicated dates. I'm an old guy. I'm still nervous about technology. However, last semester, spring semester, because we could not meet for an examination, for a final examination, the students were able to take the examinations online. And I believe that should not be a problem now. We will be doing this again. Okay, they're in the essay format. Why do I do essay format? The simple answer is I'm a sadist. I just love hurting myself. See, many professors, I don't know if they ever do true false anymore, but I know a lot of people do multiple choice. Why do you do multiple choice? It's so easy to grade. You take that puppy, you pop in the machine, and out pops the grade. So why don't I do this? Why don't I be easy on myself? I have to believe very strongly in essays to put myself through reading all of these things, looking for essential information and grading them. You see, if I write for you a multiple choice test, I'm going to have to try to fool you. I'm going to have to try to trick you. Typically, it's not always the case. Typically, in multiple choice tests, you have 4 choices, one of which should be correct or more correct. Another 3 are incorrect. I have to trick you. I have to try to fool you. Because if it was just obvious, everybody get it right. I have to trick you. I have to try to fool you. And by doing that, I have to feed you false information. I don't like doing that. False information to me is obviously something we want to avoid. It's hard enough to keep good, strong, accurate information without confusing you with false information. I can still remember from a history class in high school, a multiple choice test I was given. The question dealt with Robert E. Lee. Robert E. Lee, as you know, was the commander of a Confederate army, the Army of Northern Virginia. An able man in the battlefield, any event, at the end of the war, he loses. Okay. The question was this: what did Robert E. Lee do after the Civil War? First of all, isn't that irrelevant? I mean, his importance is not what he did after the Civil War. Can you say his importance what he did during the Civil War? But yes, it's an irrelevant question, I thought. I didn't know. I remember one of the questions was he served in Congress. That's the one I put down. That's totally erroneous. I didn't know at the time, I do know now, that high Confederate officials at the end of the Civil War were not allowed to serve in government. See, erroneous information that I still remember because I got it wrong. The correct answer was he was a college president. That is the correct answer. I didn't know it at the time, I know it now. How many thousands of college presidents have we had in the United States over the last 150 years? A whole bunch of them. He's not important for this at all. You see how you can get fouled up with this? You can walk into it, take an examination using multiple choice, and you can walk out knowing less than when you walked in, more confused. However, on an essay exam, you come in, you study well, but you think through it again, you've got to compose it, you write it down, which is the highest form of learning. The thinking about it and also the writing about it is a learning experience. You can actually take a test, an essay examination, and come out knowing more than when you walked in. To me, the advantages here are just too big, no matter how challenging it is to me, no matter how much I have to read, no matter how long it takes. To me, it is just worthwhile to do it this way. Okay. This is, can you see that at all? Probably can't. The resolution on this camera is a little bit challenging. It's even backwards as well. I essentially have two sections of an essay examination. The first I call identification and significance. And this is not for this class, this would be for another class. You notice that I have terms. I can't think backwards. I have terms here, and I also have names, which I presented in the lecture and explained them. All you have to do is take the 10 of these. I'll give you a choice of 15. You take the 10 you know the best, obviously, and you see there's a numbers running down the page right here. Those of you who are unclear about the number 10, I give you numbers to help you, 1 through 10. So you take the item right here, you write it down here, and you in two parts. You simply tell me, you identify it, and you give the significance. This is from the Ancient Civilization course. So you have people like Euripides, a very important Greek playwright, Spartacus, who led a revolt against the Romans. You have them right here, short essay. These are going to be worth 4 points each. Therefore, you have a total possibility in this section of 40 points. Let's go turn the page. And we have essay. I'm not sure how many, I haven't written your test yet, obviously, but I'm not sure how many essay questions I will give you. Sometimes I give 3, anywhere between 3 and in this case 7. Notice, let's get it up here so you can see it. Notice that you have a number of choose from. Obviously, you choose the ones you like the best. And I have up here, they're worth 30 points each. And you should highlight in the examination your most important terms, because I'm going to be looking for terms as I'm grading. And if you have the appropriate points I gave you in class, and you've properly explained them, you get a lot of points for that. Now, each essay, there'll be 2 essays, bingo, 2 essays, and they'll be worth 30 points each. 30 and 30 make 60. Coming back over here, you have 40, so 100 points possible. There'll be minutes that are online through the Canvas system on the indicated dates. Experience has told me, and I've been doing this for many, many years, that students really need between 20 and 50 minutes to take my test. Most people it takes about 40 minutes. I mean, if you want to stare at the page for a long time, you can take more time, but usually you need about 40 minutes. So I will recommend when you have the examinations that you do them within an hour. Book reviews need to be submitted online to the Canvas system as well. please note this. All examinations are not open note. You'll be taking this at home. You have access to the internet. You have access to your notes. You have access to the text. Let's go in there and just copy it in. No, this is unethical. It's very, very challenging to ask people to learn something when you're giving them incentive not to learn. I would like you to memorize your notes. It's a much better way of retaining information. You memorize your notes. You memorize your notes, you'll do well. People will do this to me all the time. I will go in there and I'll say, oh, by the way, here is a topic. And the students will put information in there which I have not given them. It reads exactly word for word like Wikipedia. Okay. I do not grade on Wikipedia articles. I do not grade on information that was not presented. I can only grade you on what I gave you. This is not a Wikipedia class. It's pretty easy to identify things that I did not give you. So please memorize your notes. This is a condensed class. Normally a class like this would meet for 14, 15 weeks. Since it's summer term, it only meets for about 7 weeks. I've got to condense what we're doing. In other words, we're going to have to do things pretty fast. I urge you to keep up. It's not a challenging thing to do. Quite frankly, I think there's can be real advantages in this because you can do this anytime. You can watch my lectures anytime at your convenience. You don't have to schedule it. Get in your car, drive down to campus, find a place to park, get into the classroom and wait for class to start. But the class will come at you pretty fast. Okay, test number 1 will be available online the week of July 13th and 14th. Remember, this class should start on June 30th. However, as these lectures are made available, and I'll send you emails to this effect, you can start anytime you want to. Okay, available online. I'm going to try to make sure I can do this. Get the Canvas people to help me. They're over in the library, as you know, and get them available for you on July 13th and 14th. You have a 2-day window to take the test. Should take you about an hour or less. You should have, and I will tell you later on at what point I'm cutting off for the test. But you should have read these chapters, 15, 16, and 17. That was not all 17, but these pages in 17. The Nicholson, Asenath Nicholson. This will be the book review paper, will be due on July 21st. Once again, you submit that on Canvas. The second test will be available on July 27th and 28th. And you should have read chapter 17. This section is 17 up here. This chapter is 17 down here. And these other chapters as well, 21, 22, and 23. The German Deserter. Remember, we don't have the author's name on this. The German Deserter's War Experience. So you will use title. You say German Deserter. And this will be due, once again, online on August 4th. The test is just the third test. The only reason why I call it the final is it's the final week, right? It's the last test. There's nothing different about my final examinations. I know some professors have the monster final. Say everything you know about world history from 1500 to the present. Be specific. I don't believe in that. One of the reasons for this is that you've already studied the first third of this class. You've already studied the second third of this class. Why do you want to review that again? You already know that material. How about just the last third of the class on the lectures I've given you most recently? Yeah. So the monster final I don't like. It's not worth any more points, and it should not take you any more time. You should have read a larger number of chapters for the examination. Normally, the examination would have been given in this class on August 12th and 13th. or excuse me, on the 13th. I said that wrong. Would have been given on the 13th. We are under really rigid deadlines on when we submit grades. There is also, since this is done fully by computer, there are times when the Canvas system at the end of the semester is no longer available. It cuts it off. And sometimes people say, well, I want to take the test late in the evening. I can't vouch for the time of this. But last semester, there was a cutoff on some of my examinations, final examinations, the third examination at 5 p.m. People say, well, I want to take it at 6. Well, no. Make sure you take them on the dates. And if you wait until the 13th, which I would not advise, you might want to do that, take it early in the day to make sure you're not cut off. You should have read these chapters, help you to understand and do well in the examination. The book reviews. We'll talk more about that in just a minute. Write a 3-page review, double space, 3-page essay, on each of the reading assignments, Asenath Nicholson's Annals of the Family in Ireland, and also the German Deserters' War Experience, outlining its arguments. You are a freshman class. This is an introductory class. I do not expect graduate level work. Make sure you read and understand the material that's presented. And I will tell you more about that in just a minute. I call this paper expectations. This is something we should tell you people. I'm not sure exactly how this works on online situations, but you do need to have access if you need it. Accessibility services. Students who need accommodations because of a disability should contact the UVU Accessibility Services Department, also known as ASD, located on the Orem campus in LC 312. To schedule an appointment or speak with a counselor, call ASD office at this number, 801-863-8747, or for deaf/hard of hearing individuals, use the video phone number, which happens to be this. If you have a learning disability, I will do everything I can to accommodate you. I never had to deal with this on an online course before. I really don't know how it's going to work or how it could work. But I will do everything I can to accommodate you. Just make sure I have the information that you've actually talked to the people at the ASD office and they've given you a slip which approves what we can do. Now, I've tried to break this down. Lecture and reading schedule. Well, these are online. One of the difficulties, remember, some of the lectures are 1 hour and 50 minutes. Some of the lectures are 1 hour and 15 minutes. Can we say I have delusions of grandeur? I think these things through. I think I've got a very good handle on how well I can proceed on things. Unfortunately, it just never works out. So this is a little pie in the sky. I would much rather you understand and follow the lectures as they are presented on YouTube. But this is a hope that it will follow largely in this manner. However, please don't hold it to me. Okay, test number 1, we've already seen this before. It's up on the other section. Test number 2, excuse me, not yet. Nicholson paper. Test 2, some of the topics we'll be discussing. German Deserter. Reading chapters. Maybe, even though I tried to do a pretty good job with this, in reality, I think I might be more misleading than helpful. Follow what I have done on YouTube and make sure that you have read the chapters. I will give you email messages as to where you should be in listening to the lectures. Okay. So, yes, I'm embarrassed. This is probably more misleading than helpful. Paper expectations, 2 papers. The Nicholson paper, German Deserter paper. Normally when I teach a class like this, I would say at the beginning of the term, look, you won't be writing these papers for a number of weeks. I can give you this information now, but you'll probably have to review it later on anyway. Now, in this case, I don't have to do that so much because you can refer back to this point of the introduction to the class anytime you want to. So I guess this is as good a place as any to give you an idea as to what I'm expecting. Expectations. The paper will be typed on 12-point font, double-spaced. I do occasionally see people use fonts that's too small, less than 12 font. If you're interested in what 12 font looks like, I type this up in 12 font. Sometimes people use bigger waste space, littler. You're doing more work than you have to do. Double spaced. I still see students, please be merciful to yourself. They hand me in papers 3 pages in length that are single spaced. This is twice as much work as you have to do. 3 pages all I'm asking for, double spaced. Why do people submit in double spaced? Because usually in double spaced, there's space between the lines, so the professor can draw your attention to certain issues and make comments. Now, I realize I can't directly, at least they haven't taught me how to do this yet, make comments so much on the text itself. I can make comments in the column, but I still would like you to practice using double spaced. At the top, all pages should be stapled together. Well, if it's in hard copy, if it's in paper, like the examination, I would expect that. If it's online, of course, you can't staple it. So that's extraneous information you don't really have to have. At the top left of the first page, over here, for example, top left of the first page, type your name and the name of the course. Okay. Your name is also your grade, and your grade will be high marks. You're going to do very well in this class. High marks, A student, but put down your name. Name of the course, ancient civilization, no, not ancient, modern civilization is totally fine. History 151G, section 1 is also fine. Sometimes people want to put my name. I don't write this. Okay. My name, name of the course, the date, and not necessary. So at the very top of the page, you have your name right here. Modern civilization is perfect. Double space. You don't have the introduction up here, your name and modern civilization, and have this much space between. That's just wasting space. You say, well, I did 3 pages. Well, you sure didn't do 3 full pages. The book you are reviewing will be, the author in this case will be Nicholson. That'll be the first paper. The second paper will say German Deserters War Experience. Now, the man who translated the German Deserters War Experience from German into English is not the author. His name's Küngen. He's not the author. I mean, I couldn't say if I could translate Plato's Republic. I don't know any Greek at all, but if I did know Greek and translate that into English, then I'd become the author of Plato's Republic. Oh, that's assuming a great deal. A translator is not the author. So if you don't have an author, you put the title. So when you're doing this book review, you'll put German Deserters War Experience. Okay, composition. Okay, you double space after you put the title or the author. You double space and come down and start your paper. So your paper is going to be the introductory material, your name, the course, the author is going to be just that much, very little. Then you start the paper. One of the reasons why I chose both Nicholson and German Deserter is that you're not going to go online and find a lot of material on them. If I did used to do that for some of my ancient history courses, I'd say, I want you to review Plato's Republic. Well, there's tons of information on Plato's Republic. You can just cut and paste it, stick it in there, or copy it over. Well, you're not going to find an awful lot of explanation on either Nicholson or German Deserter. So I'm expecting the work to be your own. Make sure all of your work is your own. Anyone caught copying papers, using these for other classes? I wrote this paper for another class, I'll just hand it in over here. No, that's unacceptable. Original work for the class. Do not use Wikipedia. Cut and paste, bring it over. or otherwise cheating, okay, research from other classes using Wikipedia, copying papers, will be declared cheaters, and you'll fail this course automatically. Academic approach: write this paper for an academic audience. Please avoid common knowledge statements. Hitler was a German. Hitler was a bad man. Hitler started World War II. Hitler killed Jews. It's common knowledge. Don't use common knowledge. Common knowledge statements, contractions, they're not really forbidden, couldn't, wouldn't, shouldn't, don't. But I really don't see this hardly at all in academic papers. I'm not saying you'll fry in your infernal regions if you use these kind of things. But since I don't see them in formal papers, I would recommend that you start practicing for when you become a published author. And in doing so, don't use contractions, okay? Autobiographical or fictional statements. I am a Navy man. I served as, in my case, Navy Reserves. I was a veteran. I was in the Navy. I go, well, what's that got to do with the topic? Well, I'm trying to impress you with who I am. Please do not impress me by who you are. Just review the book. Fictional segments. I haven't seen this for a while, but I used to see this fairly regularly. Let's go back to ancient Greece and see what ancient Greece was like. Let's walk down a street in Athens. I see to my left, I see to my left a guy selling chickens. No, don't do this kind of thing. Just discuss the book. Testimonials. A reading of Asenath Nicholson has brought me to a knowledge of a higher state of being. Don't need to do that either. Rhetorical questions. Who was Asenath Nicholson? And what did she mean? You do see this in formal writing. You do see times when very competent professors will start out asking a question. So why would I ask you not to do this? Because a lot of times students will ask questions that fills up space. And they ask questions in reality that they do not answer. See, I'm trying to keep you on topic, discussing the book. Citations. Cite where you got the information you paper by placing the author's last name and page number of the source in parentheses. I don't ask people to use footnotes. They're not forbidden in a formal paper, except in this case. Sometimes you will see this much text, and you're citing the information like Nicholson. So you have this much text and this much footnotes. It just eats up space. According to the Chicago Manual of Style, which historians follow almost always, you can use parentheticals or have your citation in parentheses. Give you an example. I used to have an example from the German Deserter, and then I find out in all my papers the quotes there. And I shouldn't say all the papers, many papers. And I have quotes from Nicholson. And then I'll have a quote in the book from Nicholson. Well, this is a quote from Winkler, me. Yes, I've done a lot of work on the Little Bighorn. Custer led his men against the foe, which heavily outnumbered them, and divided his command into columns at too great a distance to support each other. Obviously, my argument is that Custer made some errors in judgment when he attacked the Indian village. And this is me, Winkler. Last name, comma, page number, in parentheses. See what the period is? The period is not outside here. The period is inside. If you're doing Nicholson, you write Nicholson, comma, and the page number. German Deserter, by title, you simply put German Deserter, comma, page number. That's your citations. Those are your quotes. Maybe I have this out of order. I should probably have the short quote above the citations. Sometimes people will hand me in papers, quite frankly, that they have not done, they've done very little research on, kind of blather and kind of talk about this. Well, okay, German Deserter War Experience about World War I. So let's talk in vague generalities about World War I. I'm asking you to have read the book. If you're talking about an issue from the German Deserters War Experience, put in a paragraph. I do appreciate the paragraph structure. You put that in a paragraph. Just give me a short quote, 1 or 2 lines. Don't give me big quotes. That's not necessary. A short quote, 1 or 2 lines, to demonstrate what you're talking about. The German deserter might say something like, there are men who thought it'd be a better idea to kill their officers than kill the enemy. He does talk about things like this. And you might want to put in the footnote, in the quote, a man said this to me, let's kill officers. This demonstrates what you're talking about. It's just a little ploy for me to have a pretty good idea that you've actually read the book. Sometimes students use quotes excessively. Don't use the huge quotes. Write the paper, don't copy it. Sometimes students use quotes excessively to take up space in the paper. Don't do that. Use appropriate quotes in every paragraph, 1 or 2 lines long, to demonstrate your ideas, but avoid lengthy quotes entirely. Each paragraph, 1 to 2 lines. That is a requirement in the paper. Space, use space properly, avoid such problems. Large type, I've already mentioned this. Wide margins. Rather than double space, 2.5 space, 2.25 space. Paragraph titles. Nicholson, paragraph 1. People die. Paragraph 2. You have triple space, come down, have another title. More people die. Triple space, come on down. It's just wasting space. If you're writing a multi-voluminous work or a big book, titles for chapters are probably a good idea. But for a short paper, literally titles waste space. Writing a good positive style, clarity is a must. A lot of times, students are very talented. They write very well. But when they do a rush job, sometimes they could make their papers a lot better just by rereading it. Writing a good positive style, clarity is a must. Reread it. Sometimes it's helpful to reread things out loud. When you do so, you say, oh, wait a minute, this is a little rough. It might make better sense if I clarify this issue or use a different word. Make sure your sentences are clear and carry the desired meaning. Also avoid overstating your case. It's impressive. I think these books are very impressive. In many respects, I think these books are very illuminating. They shed a lot of light on the discussion. But sometimes big terms like fantastic. Wow, this was fantastic. The one we hear most often is amazing. Man, this was amazing. Amazing is used so often in modern speech, I'm not really sure what it means anymore. Amazing is like flying without wings. And now amazing is good, impressive, nice. However, I look at this and it's still a very strong word to me. I would urge you, don't overstate your case. Use appropriate terminology. Fantastic, amazing, incredible are a little bit too much. I would recommend you do not use them. Use appropriate terms to represent your meaning. We're right down here. The word thing carries little meaning. I'm not saying it's a forbidden word. I'm not saying you go in there and should never use thing. But if you're trying to get your book published, you send the book publisher, and they're scratching their head saying, what does this author mean by thing? That can be a problem. I'm not saying you shouldn't use it by saying you should probably use it very sparingly. It really carries very little meaning. If you have something to say, say it. Expressions such as etc. The Greeks were tall, efficient, etc. etc. I think people are implying, I know things. I know more things. I know a lot more than I could tell you. But I won't tell you. But I know more. Now, if you have something to say, say it. I have no problem with that. Etc. is also almost identical, and so forth. The Greeks ran fast and high and jumped over tall buildings, and so forth. Now, just tell me. If you got something to say, say it. I'm asking you to avoid those entirely. Colloquialism. Do you know what colloquialism? Colloquialism is like everyday speech. I think in overusing amazing up here, that ends up being a colloquialism. Colloquialisms are inappropriate for academic papers. Sometimes people are too common using common speech, like you and I talk, and placing that in the paper. I love colloquial speech. I'd really enjoy the flavor of people speaking back and forth to use sometimes common expressions. In an academic paper, you really don't see this. What would be a colloquialism? The dudes and the dudettes were hanging out at the Parthenon. And man, they were grooving to the moving. I mean, it's all kinds of things. Think in terms of academic terminology, not common speech. Logic, make sure that your arguments make sense and are grammatically correct. Once again, reread the sentence. Make sure you're using proper grammar. So, I'm sure you people are very intelligent. You are on a university level. Your ability to write is very, very well demonstrated, probably throughout your career. And in doing so, I'm sure that you can simply bring that expertise into the papers in this class. However, I just ask you to take a little care with them. That's very important. I got this a few years ago from the university, learning objectives and outcomes, essential learning outcomes, integrative and applied learning. A student will engage in discipline-appropriate experiences with the academic and broader community through integrated and applied learning. Intellectual and practical skills foundation. A student will acquire a foundation intellectual and practical skills, including communication, quantitative reasoning, qualitative reasoning, critical, analytical, and creative thinking, and technical and information literacies. I will do my level best, but unfortunately, I can't accomplish everything in an introductory course. However, I'm going to give it my best shot. People of integrity. A student will become personally and socially responsible by acquiring, developing, and demonstrating skills in ethical reasoning and understanding. I hope to be able to bring to your thought process, to the discussion of ethical issues, which I will discuss somewhat. There is a function which I'm going to talk about in the very first lecture of this class, where I think there is an ethic which we can learn from by examining what's gone on in the past. Professional competency. A student will demonstrate professional competence by meeting the established standards of the discipline, working as a valued member of a team, effectively formulating and solving problems, and actively seeking and honing lifelong learning skills. I believe you already have lifelong learning skills. You already know how to read a book. You already know how to memorize, and you already know how to read and write. I would argue that in this class, this is just another opportunity for you to enhance those skills. Stewards of place. A student will demonstrate stewardship of local, national, and global communities by cultivating awareness of interdependence among these communities, issues within those communities, and organization skills that address such issues. Knowledge foundation. A student will demonstrate knowledge of human cultures. We are going to talk about a number of human cultures. And physical and natural world in the following areas of essential study. Arts. We'll talk about art. Renaissance part of this course, a lot of fun. History, this is a history class. We'll talk a lot about history. Humanities, yeah. Languages, well, I can't teach you language here. I'm going to use my best English. But the language you're probably going to have to learn it. Foreign language, you probably have to learn another class. Science and mathematics, not a math class. Social sciences, history is a social science. Knowledge Foundation refers to GED distribution courses and other courses and experiences within the major. We say these are very high goals that the university has set for us. I will do the best I can in this course to accommodate in all these areas. Well, I've spent a lot of time introducing this class to you. So let's back off now, come back next time, and start with the lectures. Remember, I will be communicating to you by the use of email messages. So I will start doing that as we get close to the beginning of the semester. In the meantime, enjoy, and we'll talk to you later.